This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
Be advised that the views and opinions of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
In 1632, Hazarfen flew from the very top of the Galata Tower and soared across the Bosphorus. And so the Turks learned how to fly.
The saltiness of the sea, the sourness of the lemon.
Fresh fish, only the gulls eat fresher.
The rest night knows. And we, and the tower that sees, and the light that showed me a path through the sea. Justinian sent 2 monks from here, out on the Silk Road to China, to steal the secret of Chinese cloth. They returned with silkworm eggs, and from them hatched an empire.
It is a dance where the dancer grows through love towards the truth and finally
reaches perfection.
To the city, Istanbul.
In Istanbul, there are always two cities, 2 speeds, slow and fast. It stands always, the world's capital.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Global Village. I'm Buddy Kunanan. Now, you know, folks, on this show, we take you around the world. You meet interesting people, visit amazing places, and we also talk about topics and issues that impact the global community. Tonight is a very special show because we're featuring once again Turkey, which is a country that I love very much and I'm personally very close to. And we'll talk about Turkish-Philippine friendship. We'll talk about the country, its culture, its heritage. And joining us in this journey through the Ottoman Empire is a very good friend of the Global Village. He's been on the show before. His name is Selim Serinoglu, and he is the president of the Pacific Dialogue Foundation, a Turkish-Filipino NGO that is doing amazing work in education, in conflict resolution, in interfaith dialogue, and so much more. Selim, welcome again to Global Village. It's a pleasure to have you here, sir.
Thank you very much, buddy. It's also a pleasure for me to be here.
It's such a special show today because, okay, for starters, this is the first show that we're having after Ramadan, which we ended June 15, a few days ago. It's also the first show of Global Village here that is airing in sunshine, because here we've had almost nonstop a week or 2 of rains, and finally the sun is showing. And so I'm so happy to have you here to talk about your country in this very nice atmosphere of sunshine and post-Ramadan, just feel-good optimism.
This is a good weather now, yeah. Thank you.
Let's talk about Ramadan. And we had dinner.
Yeah.
I think 2 weeks ago.
Almost 2 weeks ago, yeah.
Fantastic Turkish dinner. And we had this during the height of Ramadan, after your fasting. Let's talk about, for the benefit of the viewers, let's talk about what exactly is Ramadan and why is there a fasting process involved?
Okay. Well, as you know, fasting is prescribed as one of the pillars of Islam. And just like it was prescribed for Christianity in general and for the Jewish before the Muslims as well. So, fasting during the Ramadan is a mandatory prayer or worship, way of worship, like, to the God, a way of, like, commitment that you do for the sake of religion only, actually. And as you may know also, we Muslims are, following lunar calendar for our activities and for our, prayers. And Ramadan is the 9th month of the lunar calendar that we are fasting, and this month is considered or like declared as a holy month by God in the Quran. That we have to fast consecutively 30 days from sundown to sunset time.
Okay.
And during that time, we don't drink, we don't eat, or we don't smoke, or any like any physical attraction with the other gender. So we are abstaining from that one. But of course, this is not just about like not drinking, not eating, or not smoking. But this is actually more of a mental thing that you have to oblige yourself. So within this month, we are giving, first of all, a break to our stomach, for it to regenerate,
Absolutely.
in once in a year at least. So, together with the rest of our body, actually, even non-Muslims nowadays, for that reason, for the health reasons, they are fasting, even though it's not, mandatory for them, so that their body can regenerate, especially blood circulation,
Absolutely.
the kidneys, and, the other part of the organs and etc. So it's very healthy actually that we are doing this. But of course, this is also a month. While we are fasting, we are praying more than usual, more than ever. We are reading Quran more than ever, and this is also a time we can sympathize with the people who are less fortunate than ourselves, who doesn't have like an access to food or water all the time.
Yes.
So since we are sympathizing them more, this is a time actually we are more charitable than usual as well, and that is why like we have an obligatory alms giving prescribed, a portion of our income or wealth. But other than that, of course, like we are free to give more as much as we want.
It happens specifically during the month of Ramadan.
True, the alms giving should be during the month of Ramadan.
Okay. Now, when you mentioned about sunset, the fasting period between sunrise and sunset and sunrise,
Yes.
are there set hours? Because it can vary. I mean, how do you
Yeah.
determine sunset to sunrise?
Well, there's of course like the what's that official officers who are actually following when the sun is setting and when the sun is like rising again and downing. So we have like also mobile applications who are showing it to us. So most of the Ramadan within last month, the sun down was about I think like 4:10, between 4 a.m. to 4:10 a.m. and the sunset was also like changing between I think it started like 6:17 and it went up to 6:30.
But it's so interesting
PM.
that you mentioned that the modern Muslims actually have apps
Yeah.
that show you exactly when you're supposed to start
True.
fasting and when you can
True.
when it start and stop fasting. That's amazing. And just hearing about you talk about Ramadan and the fasting, no food and drink. That must be quite difficult, because this month is not exactly the coolest month anywhere in the world except the southern hemisphere. And so how do you work and go about your daily living and just activities of your daily life without drinking? I mean, I cannot eat, that's fine. But the drinking part, that's a bit of a challenge, eh?
Well,
I mean, water, hydration.
true, like that's why I was calling like it's a commitment that actually you are like putting yourself in the front line, that you have to make up your own mind. Otherwise, it's not like always easy to get used to it. But I can tell actually if you can manage like for the last couple of days or maybe like for a week in most cases, in some cases, then the rest of the month is going to be easy for you. And this is not a month actually like while we are fasting we should be sleeping the whole day, or like we should be like stopping doing our regular works. In fact, in most of the part of the world, it's ongoing. So people are like can work and can do their daily works, and like they can also like be patient with their worshiping, with their like fasting at the same time. But in the Philippines, even though it's like, hotter than most of the places, it's also like, we are luckier than compared to some other countries because the daytime is shorter in here. So like, in Turkey, for example, when my parents were like, fasting.
In the summer,
yes,
the
it's
sun goes
summer.
down at 8, 9 o'clock in the evening.
True, like, they were breaking their fast like 8 p.m. and they're fasting around 17 hours.
Wow.
But in
So
here in the Philippines,
you have it, you Turks in the Philippines have it easy.
It's easier
That's
for
just
us
how
in
the
here.
world works. I mean, the nature of sunrise and sunset in different time zones.
True, true. Only around 14 hours we
good
have to
point.
fast in here, fast in here.
Well, they say life is tough in the tropics, but in this case, it's a little easier. Okay, bravo, bravo, sir. Okay, let's talk about Pacific Dialogue Foundation, and I mentioned a little bit about the foundation in my opening spiel. I mentioned all the great work you guys are doing.
Thank you very much.
What is the Pacific Dialogue Foundation about, exactly?
Well, Pacific Dialogue Foundation, to give a little background, was established in 2011 by Turkish and Filipino volunteers. And we dedicated ourselves to promote interfaith dialogue between, Muslims and non-Muslims, in general, and to promote the intercultural relations between, Filipino and Turkish society and the cultures. Excuse me. So, for this reason, we have been working and doing activities, making network to reach out, like, bigger communities. So, for that reason, like, we met you in the first place, that's why, like, we invite you to also, a dinner in the Ramadan. So just like, a simple exchange of the culture,
Absolutely.
A Muslim culture and a Turkish culture at the same time. So for that reason, we have been organizing conferences, first of all, in universities, in government organizations, even in, like, PNP and AFP at the same time, Philippine National Police and Armed Forces of the Philippines. And we talk about topics such as Islam and combating extremism cancer, because this is, we believe is a timely issue that we have to tackle. And especially as Muslims, it is our duty to represent, our religion better than, like, what some monsters are, claiming, they're Muslims and they're committing crimes and, like, violence. But we say, this is actually not part of our religion.
Definitely.
In fact, we are cursing those people, and we say we don't share the same religion with them. So as Muslims, we say, first of all, it's our responsibility, and then it's the society's responsibility to claim the name of the religion again in the best way. So for that reason, we are, like, trying to inform people, what is Islam, what is, the belief of Muslims, what does Quran says about especially these kind of monsters. And we have to stop, this cancer, because we say extremism is like a cancer, like, we have to stop before it, it spreads around our body.
Yes.
So in our society. And of course, we tell, like, what are the reasons of extremism, what causes, these problems, these troubles, and of course, like, how we can, stop these problems.
Definitely. And, it's very timely because as you hit the nail on the head, a lot of, the conflict and hate and anger and bad feelings stem from lack of awareness, lack of understanding, misinformation,
True.
misunderstanding, and sadly, there really is a lot of that when you talk about Islam. Because unlike, let's say, the Catholic Church, where there is a central authority, the Vatican, the Pope,
Yes.
that tells you exactly, okay, this is the doctrine, this is what we follow, we adhere to. In Islam, correct me if I'm wrong, there's no one single authority really when you talk about the religion. You have
We don't have it nowadays.
Yeah, right?
True.
In the old days, but now it's like sometimes it's like one leader says something different from another leader and all that, no? And somehow it gets it gets bastardized to for lack of a kinder word, it gets twisted into another form that wasn't really how it's supposed to be.
It's true. It's part of the reasons, actually, like, we say, actually, as in general, not just my foundation, but also I will explain later, we have a movement, ongoing in the world.
Yes.
So in our movement, we say, like, there are three main problems, causing all the extremism or misunderstandings or conflicts in the world. So these are, ignorance, first of all, and poverty, and, disunity among the societies. So we are, like, trying to tackle on these three problems, major problems, to be able to, like, contribute to the peace in the world and, to the societies in the world.
Yes.
So first of all, I would like, emphasize this one. When we say, interfaith dialogue, it's not about, like, emphasizing, or, like, it's not about imposing my ideas on you, or like, you know, trying to convert you to my religion. But this is basically just simple exchange of the information and culture. And it is for me to know you, get to know you better, and accept you as you are. And of course, it is to represent myself, my religion, my belief, and my culture in the way it is, so that, like, you know, the other societies, the part of societies, can get to know us better and, like, can accept us as we are. So
Yes.
this is about it actually, and that is why, like, you know, we say ignorance, you know, through education, and poverty through, you know, outreach programs, you know, through charity activities, and, you know, and of course, like, you know, through empowering people and promoting business relations between different nations, maybe, like, you know, this way we can try to, like, solve this. But also, in the long term, education is actually the solution for these three problems.
Yes.
And when it comes to disunity, conflict, of course, we say dialogue is the only solution. And that is why, actually, you know, we are trying to always, you know, communicate and cooperate with the local government agencies in the Philippines, such as Armed Forces of the Philippines. When we meet with their leaders, with generals, with the chief of staff, and with the other, you know, officials, we say that, you know, fighting terrorists is your business. Like, you know, it's your duty. Of course, like, you know, we leave it to you, that part. If terrorists, fight them and, like, you know, just get them, or if that is, like, you know, the last resort we have. But fighting terrorism is the duty of all of our society. And as foreigners who accepted Philippines as their homes, as a, like, you know, country, actually, we would like to do as much as, like, you know, we can do for the society. And that is why, you know, fighting against terrorism, the ideology, we are trying to, like, you know, do our part and, like, you know, be beneficial, be helpful.
Yes, and it's good you're engaging our men and women in uniform in the armed forces and Philippine National Police, because they are at the forefront. They are our combatants, they are our security forces, and they are at the forefront in this battle against the scourge, as you said, the cancer of extremism. And it's good that they get, you know, just bringing this dialogue to them and making them more aware. And that's how it starts. Now, when you have information and you're aware of the other side, it makes you understand them better. You know, as Yoda said, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate. Hate leads to the dark side. I mean, you know, that's a Star Wars, you know, it's iconic Star Wars line, but it is actually very true if you think about it, no?
Definitely
it's really fear, and fear comes from ignorance. So if you can help bridge that, which you guys are doing at the Pacific Dialogue Foundation, bravo. And I think it's a wonderful thing that you guys are a Turkish-Filipino NGO, because in the Islamic world, Turkey has been traditionally viewed as a shining example of what a responsible, predominantly Islamic country can do in the world. Now, we have paused for a break. When we come back, we'll talk more about your activities, especially interesting things like your beef sharing activity and more of your you know, working with the armed forces and the Philippine National Police. We'll also talk about the wonderful schools that you guys are operating, not just in the Philippines, but all over the world. So guys, stick around, because more of the Turkish-Philippine friendship with the Pacific Dialogue Foundation, its President Shalim Sirinoglu, when Global Village returns.
İstanbul'a mı gider sence?
Başka nereye gideceğiz?
Buraya gelecek hali yoktu ya. Çok istesek gelir bence.
Aha geliyor. Vallahi
verdi.
Türkiye'de uçmadığımız tek bir yer kalsa, dünyada en çok noktaya uçmuşuz. Ne fayda? Türk Hava Yolları.
Welcome back to Global Village. I'm Buddy Konana. Tonight's topic is Turkish-Philippine friendship, and joining us still is the president of the Pacific Dialogue Foundation. It's a Philippine-Turkish NGO. Good friend of Global Village, Selim Sirinoglu. Selim, welcome back to our second segment.
Thank you.
Now, we've been showing these nice videos of Turkey, which we'll talk about tourism later on. But these are, I just want to point out that these are Turkish Airlines videos, and I'm a big fan of the airline. I always fly it, the Turkish Airlines, especially from Georgia, which I visit often, to Istanbul or Ankara. And excellent airline. And they now fly, I think, for the last 2 years.
Yeah,
right?
3 years, almost 3 years.
Almost 3 years, huh? Manila to Istanbul.
Manila to Istanbul, direct flight.
So that makes it so much easier to see your beautiful country, especially for Filipinos. Bravo.
It's a very beautiful country and very biblical country also. That's why we were able to actually use to organize trips to Turkey, with our Filipino delegations, with our friends, especially with the Catholic members, of our foundation. That we used to take them to Mama Mary's house, Ephesus, Cappadocia,
yes.
The 7 churches, and Ur city, mentioned in Bible as well. So now it's easier, I think, for Filipinos to see those places, especially together with the Turkish Airlines, as you mentioned. They have a direct flight from Manila.
And it's a fantastic airline. It's won numerous awards, best European air carrier for I don't know how many years running, and
the biggest fleet in Europe as well. So it's a very nice actually airlines and
good prices. They have to say. I mean, I have to say they have one of the most affordable economy and business class fares available. So I have to say, even if you go to Europe, perfect flight, Turkish Airlines.
I think this takes around maybe 12 hours, 11 to 12 hours, by direct flights from here to Istanbul. Yes.
Bravo. Okay, let's talk about. Let's go back to before we talk about tourism. Let's talk about your work in the Pacific Dialogue Foundation. And I mentioned that I'm so glad that Turkey is doing this because Turkey has the credibility. Because as I mentioned earlier, it has been a shining example of what a predominantly Muslim society can do. And if you go to Turkey. It's modern, it's ancient, it's progressive. The economy is very strong. All that, has been very strong. I mean, and especially, it has a very strong secular history, modern history behind it. Let's talk about that. It's secular, the secular background of modern Turkey.
Sure. Well. Turkey has always been actually, even since the ancient times, a multinational and multi-religious country. Let's go back to Ottoman times. Turkish people actually migrated from Central Asia to the Anatolian land. Anatolia is the Asian part of Turkey, we say. And, they settled up over there. They built up nations over and over again. And finally, when the Ottomans came, they were able to conquer Constantinople at that time, Byzantium. And Sultan Mehmet is the conqueror. After he conquered Istanbul, he called the Orthodox Christians to his palace to talk to them, to the leaders. And he told them, your safety in my country is going to be provided to you. So you don't have to change your religion. You can just live the way you have been living before. You are very much welcome in our country at the moment. And in case, some people might have some, grudge against you, I'm going to provide a troop for your security especially. So just, assure your community they are safe in our country. They're welcome in our country. They can just pray the way they have been praying, and they can still keep using the churches and everything else. And that is one of the, excuse me again, reasons, why Turkey or Ottoman nation, Ottoman Empire, has been appreciated actually in the past, for the countries they have been conquering, because Ottoman Empire was a strong empire.
Absolutely.
They conquered many places in South Middle East area, in the eastern part, and even in the Europe. But even after they conquered the other religious countries, they never touched the culture. They never forced them to change their religion, or they never forced them to change their language as well. And that is why after beating the army, conquering the society was actually through heart, through dialogue again.
Yes, hearts and minds.
Hearts and minds.
There you go, hearts and minds.
Exactly. So that's how it happened in before. And when there was, for example, persecution against Jewish people in Spain, the Jewish people took asylum, in Ottoman Empire. So Ottoman Empire, welcomed them as well. Even though, today we can know, Jewish people not getting very well actually together with the Muslims. The Muslim country opened, their heart and their arms and their homes to them, in the Ottoman Empire. And they are still living in, those societies still living in Turkey since until now. Anyway, so I would like to get here a monument, maybe we can say. Since you since you have been traveling to Istanbul, have you taken the Bosporus tour?
Absolutely. Stunning.
Yes, and there's a place in the side, in the Asian side, Kuzguncuk. I don't know if they showed it to you. But next time you go, please ask for where is it. Because in some of the Bosporus tours, when you take, they show the place to you because there is a special place in there where you can see a synagogue, a church, and a mosque standing next to each other.
Oh, that's a wonderful sight.
Yes.
You don't see that too often.
You don't see that too often. Even
except
though,
maybe in Jerusalem, perhaps, maybe.
I'm not sure.
But not even that close.
Yeah, exactly. These are if you take one picture, they're standing next to each other in one compound. And this is something, was established during Ottoman time by the local, Christian society and the Muslims together, and of course with the Jews.
So it really has a long background of tolerance, of acceptance, of openness, just to have, as you pointed out, it happened in Ottoman time. And then fast forward to the time of the father of modern Turkey, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, who really was the father of man ahead of his time.
True.
Really, he saw, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And he laid down the foundation of what you have now in modern Turkey, which is supposed to be tolerant, supposed to be secular, supposed to be, non-discriminatory and all that.
Well, of course, in time, the culture, gets to change a little bit. So we cannot 100% say the Turkey is the same as it was before, but still very much tolerant. As actually, when it comes to foreigners, when it comes to other religions and etc. And we are still hosting the patriarchy for Orthodox in Istanbul, as their host, as their home, as their center. And the Hagia Sophia is still there. Mama Mirsa is still there, Cappadocia is still there, and all those places are getting pilgrims all over the world every year.
Interesting that you mentioned Hagia Sophia, which is probably the most iconic landmark in Istanbul, and Turkey for that matter. It started out as a cathedral during the Byzantine time, Byzantium, and then it became a mosque. And today it's neither. It's a center of, I understand it's a center for general worship, embracing all humankind, that kind of thing.
Well, it was open for some time for general praying, but nowadays actually it's used as a museum.
Yes.
But even today, when you go inside, on one side you can still see the mosaics, that are showing the pictures of Mama Mary or Jesus Christ or the other apostles. So those mosaics or those paintings in the walls, for example, were never harmed.
They were just covered up.
They were just covered up, because
plaster.
True, because as Muslims, when we use a place as a mosque, there cannot be a picture of a living creature in front of us. That is why, instead of Ottoman Empire, through their generosity, or how can I say this, through their kindness, instead of destroying the culture, instead of removing those pictures over there, they just change it. They just covered it with plaster, so it can be removed again, and today it can be seen again during the museum time. So you can see all those pictures together. You can see also the calligraphy of Allah or Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So you can see a mosque and a church at the same time. So it is today open as a Muslim for whole Christian, Catholic, Orthodox, and Muslim and Jewish. Every tourist who would like to see that place, they can go and see the place.
It really is, Turkey, especially Istanbul, it's really a place where East meets West.
True.
Because if it's fascinating history, well, it was once a seat of the Eastern Roman Empire in Constantinople, named after the Roman Emperor Constantine, who first moved the seat from Rome to Byzantium, to Constantinople, no? And then it changed a lot. It became, it became Muslim after, and so it really is a crossroads of many cultures, and that's the beautiful thing about Turkey when you go there, no? It's something for everyone.
True, there was this actually magazine I saw. I think it's from Nepal. I don't remember the name of the magazine, but a journalist like goes to Turkey and like observes the culture, and then when he comes back, I think that was a title like he used for Turkey, European people with Asian hearts. So like I love that one because true like we are living so much in modern culture, we are not dressing up like the Middle Easterns especially, or we have different features on our face. You can totally see like and mix confuse us with European locals over there. But through our cultures, actually, we can say like it's closer to the Asian part of the world.
Yeah.
So just like you said, like where Eastern meets with the Western, or like the East meets with the Western.
Yes, and the whole experience of being in Turkey is fantastic. I mean, from the sights, the sounds, the cuisine, fantastic. And so, which is your favorite part of Turkey, Salim? I mean, I know it's a tough question, it's an unfair question, but let's have it. Which is your favorite spot? Aside from Istanbul.
Aside from Istanbul, I can say my hometown, Trabzon.
Okay.
That's like the northeastern part of Turkey, which is close to Georgia, which is close to Russia. I'm coming from those area, and if we were to like make a comparison to Philippines, I think the closest place will be Baguio, because my land is always green, high in the land, and there is no like platoons. You can't find them, and right after the sea, like the mountain starts. So when a person wants to like build up a house, there's a cost difference. So like the one leg is like on the ground, the other one has to like be supported by the pillars.
Very nice.
Yeah, and I can say like my feature is common in my area, white skin, like blonde people generally with the colored eyes. But when you go to other parts of Turkey, people get like brunette skin or like dark skin, and yeah.
It changes because you're also bordered by so many other countries. Where
True.
Of course, I mean, these borders are porous. They have always been porous. Until
True.
today, they are very porous, and there's the natural movement of peoples that contributes to the gender and the genetic mix
Indeed.
of modern Turkey. Shall we have to pause for a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about your schools, and we're going to talk about future plans of Pacific Dialogue Foundation.
Sure.
So guys, stick around because more of Turkish-Philippine friendship when Global Village returns. Welcome back to Global Village. I'm Buddy Kunanan. Tonight's topic is Turkish-Philippine friendship, and joining still is Salim Serinoglu, good friend of ours, and he is the president of the Pacific Dialogue Foundation, Turkish-Filipino NGO. Salim, welcome back to our last segment, third segment, and again, another nice tourism video on Turkey. I had initially planned to talk about tourism in this segment, but sometimes this conversation, you just got to go with it. So we've talked about tourism and all the videos shown, and I think our viewers are really gung-ho and raring to go to Turkey. Absolutely beautiful country. Okay, let's talk more about the Pacific Dialogue Foundation. I understand that you guys operate schools in the Philippines, and and very interesting ones at that, because your approach is very novel, given the background of your NGO.
Well, actually, Pacific Dialogue Foundation is more on the, as I said, interfaith and intercultural dialogue. So trying to reach out to communities. But as you said, as Turkish community, we also have schools, and those are the first establishments actually we made in the Philippines. But they're running under another foundation, which is a sister foundation to Pacific Dialogue Foundation called ICAT Foundation, Integrative Center for Alternative Development. So
we have a video here. We're showing some inserts about the ICAT Foundation.
Oh, okay. So ICAT Foundation is the one who is managing the schools we have in the Philippines. We have 3 schools, which are the Filipino-Turkish Tolerance School, established in Zamboanga City since 1996 or 1997. I'm not sure. And we have Fountain International Schools, elementary and high school branch in Manila, in San Juan City particularly. So these are the 3 schools we have, and as you mentioned, we are trying to make difference through these schools, because as I mentioned earlier, one of the major problems that we have to solve is ignorance through education. And these schools are trying to make a difference by trying to give, of course, a good, contemporary science education to students, giving a good math education, giving a good, science education, and of course, these students are joining local and international competitions and gaining, very much
Yes.
gold rewards.
I understand that your students have been performing very, very admirably and successfully in these, all these academic contests. Huh?
Well, yeah, they have been very successful so far. In fact, there are some ongoing competitions even at the moment. So they're competing in Malaysia, and this, I think, the World Scholar Cup, they're attending at the moment. This is already the 2nd stage. So 9 students from our schools are in the Malaysia at the moment, and if they pass through the 2nd stage as well, they will be going to United States to represent Philippines
look at that, huh?
at the
Bravo,
finals.
bravo.
Yeah.
And I did some research on the Fountain International School. I understand that the classroom sizes are very small.
True.
I mean, you really have a hands-on approach to education. Tell us a bit about this, Ellen.
Well, as I was mentioning, of course, we are trying to get a good contemporary science education, but that's only the one part of our educational system. The second part of our educational system is that we are trying to teach universal values to these students, and that is why we are trying to keep the classrooms small as possible. Maximum 16 students.
Maximum
16
That's
students.
amazing.
Yeah. So our teachers can be students as much as possible, and they can pay attention to their lives, and they can get involved with them, and just be a good role model for them in the future. So these children are not just going to grow up as a student students. Successful students, but also a moral people who are going to benefit the society, who are going to be abstaining from drugs and every other problem or another a bad habit, and they're not going to be corrupt people in the future. So they're going to be contributing to their society with their knowledge and with their honesty. And as I mentioned, we are teaching universal values instead of teaching religions, and our schools are non-sectarian schools, and that is why we say we are Muslim people running the schools.
Good
but
point.
In a way these schools are unique because the Christian students, Catholic students can also join, Buddhist students can join, even atheist students can join, and can grow up together
Bravo. I was going to ask, I'm glad you brought it up, because I was going to ask you that, and I'm sure in the minds of our people watching us now, when they talk about, school being run by a Turkish Philippine foundation or NGO, do you teach, they automatically assume that, Islam is probably included in the curriculum, but it's not.
It's not.
So it's really, you don't teach any religion,
no
focusing
religion,
on morals and development of morals and good values.
Definitely. We call them universal values because these values are all common in all the religions basically, and these are all humanitarian things be respectful to your elders, love your neighbor, these are both messages given Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and Jesus Christ as well.
I also read on the internet that Fountain International School also has a very strong anti-bullying program. It's very much emphasized in the school environment. And that's a big problem, no? The whole bullying issue with schools. How are you able to implement this?
Well, I'm not actually from the school part, so
Yeah.
I can only tell what I know.
Sure.
Actually, as you mentioned, we are keeping the classroom maximum of 16, so every student is assigned by a teacher who can actually spare time for them. So there is definitely no place for bullying in our school. So this we never. I don't remember I've been living in the Philippines for 5 years, and I've been with the schools. So I've been following the schools for 5 years. I only heard only one exceptional case, and that case was solved by order with the parents, with the students, and we never faced another problem like that.
I think a lot has to do with the small size of the classrooms, because these days
a close contact with the teacher.
16 is very, very small, and that's these days kids, their attention spans are very short, and I guess the traditional way of learning, when you had 40 kids to a classroom, is changing, and it's not applicable today anymore, I guess. Huh?
Unfortunately, it's not applicable anymore, or it's not feasible anymore. You can't really teach, or you can really take care of them. I mean, education actually in Turkish is divided to two words. One education, meaning scientific, contemporary science education, and also moral education. So we are trying to focus on two things at the same time. So that is why even 20 is not very much feasible nowadays, or having long sessions in the classroom is not very feasible anymore. That is why we try to pay attention to the student, the way they live, and etc. as much as possible. And of course, when we give, for example, homeworks for home, it's not just do this math problems and etc. But of course, it's more do this contribution to society, or help your parent setting up the table for dinner and etc. Help them for the washing dishes, and just carry out this I don't know, a bowl of soup to your neighbor, to give it to poor and etc. And that is why our schools have been valuing this kind of education to the students, and maybe that's probably actually one of the way of stopping the bullying, because our schools are very much actually busy with all the outreaching programs sports fairs and musicals, and beef sharing programs we are attending as well, we are organizing as well. So they are always seeing good deeds being done for the sake of society. So if, for example, a student was to commit some sort of bullying, they will probably go, or they will probably betray the values of the school, or the values of the education they've been receiving from their teachers, and they don't want to do that, because they are in a loving society in our schools.
Yes. I'm also very much pleased that you mentioned that the schools are very focused on contemporary science education, and pretty much creative thinking outside the box. And I want to show a video which we culled from YouTube, and this actually was made, I think, by grade 8 students in Fountain International School, and the objective was to teach them how to merge technology and art together. And I thought what they did was an incredibly beautiful video, and let's show the video now. Bravo, bravo. Huh? So a product of grade 8 Fountain International School students, and maybe 13 years old, 12 to 14-year-old age range. I have to say, fantastic. I mean, beauty and simplicity. Teaches them about art, technology, classical music, all in one beautiful video. Bravo, bravo.
Thank you.
And you were mentioning that you've set up your campus, that the campus is set up in a way that even the most up-to-date technology and
Yes.
computer stuff you
Yeah.
have access to.
Yeah. We just like, again updated our laboratories, like, science laboratories and computer labs, and with the smart boards and everything. So these students, like, when they come, like, they're getting a special education for even programming, at this age. So they're like, very much enjoying actually their education over there. And also they're like, just getting easy education. And of course, the classical methods are sometimes like, boring nowadays for the new generation. That is why we also have to like, provide them with creative technology and innovative technologies. So like, they can just focus on like, what they're learning easier.
Yeah.
Like, we can get their attention to teach them better.
Very good. Make them enjoy it, enjoy the process.
Enjoyable, yeah.
And I'm also glad that you mentioned that there is, the homework approach is also very different, because I'm very anti-homework. Hate homework, hate homework. Selim, we have so much to talk about, but before we go, we're down to our last minute, unfortunately. So many other things to talk about, but we'll cover it again next time. Would you like to say something to the audience before we go?
Well, I can say, like, Turkey is a very beautiful country. I will suggest, like, every Filipino society, like, to visit once in at least, like, they're in lifetime if they have the chance. And they can always, like, approach us to get more information. And I've been like within this country for 5 years, and as you may know, also like I'm also married to a Filipino, and I'm a Muslim. My wife is a Catholic, and I'm always like telling we are trying to be a sample for the society. That interfaith dialogue can actually like be in our life. I mean, like it's very much possible for like Muslims and like Christians to come and live together around common values, because we actually have like so many commonalities that even if we don't like emphasize them all the time, but we should be doing actually. So thank you very much for hosting me today, and we will be as ICAT Foundation, as Pacific Dialogue Foundation, we'll continue our activities to contribute to the peace in the Philippines and in the world as much as possible.
Bravo. More power to you, Selim, and your
very much.
foundation, and all the good works you're doing to help the Philippines and Filipinos, and to bridge that gap, that awareness and ignorance gap that is the root of so many problems and so much hatred and angst in our society. Thank you so much. Teşekkür ederim.
Teşekkür ederim ben de.
See you soon. Huh? So guys, I hope you enjoyed our show tonight on Turkish-Philippine friendship. Join us again next week here in Global Village, and let us take you around the world. Till then, you all have a good evening.